Welcome to Wisdom for the Present, where we take ancient truth and bring it into clear, modern understanding. This episode uses AI-generated narration based on human-researched and written material. So imagine being so thoroughly gaslit by a billionaire that you actually literally forget your own name and your own history.
Right, which sounds like, I don't know, a modern psychological thriller or a sci-fi movie.
Exactly. But today, we have a massive stack of sources that deals with exactly this kind of wild manipulation. We're talking 19th century literary critiques, historical antitheses of 16th century marriage laws, even some philosophical treatises on Stoicism and Taoism.
Oh, we are definitely pulling from everywhere today.
We really are, because our mission in this deep dive is to dissect William Shakespeare's wildly controversial play, The Taming of the Shrew. And we are going to look past the traditional velvet ropes of literary reference. We're digging straight into the messy, chaotic, and often deeply uncomfortable realities of this text.
And it is a profound mess. I mean, there's just no way around that.
Absolutely. But the goal here is to act as thoughtful guides, helping you, the listener, extract practical wisdom, moral insight, and life application from an ancient work that, quite frankly, makes a lot of people want to just throw the book across the room.
Yeah, and they wouldn't be wrong to feel that way. But within that mess, there's this really fascinating diagnostic mirror held up to human relationships. It looks at conflict and the roles society forces us to play.
Right, because it's not just a simple story, even if people treat it like one.
Exactly. The text actively defies our modern sensibilities at almost every single turn. And that is precisely why analyzing it yields such potent insights into how we navigate, power dynamics and performative identities today.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the sheer complexity of the source material demands, we look at the psychological warfare happening right beneath the surface. I mean, we are looking at a play that is part comedy, part tragedy, depending on your perspective, and completely chaotic.
Oh, complete.
But before we even get into the famous Shrew and her tamer, we have to talk about the psychological experiment that opens the entire text. Because we don't start in Padua. We start outside an alehouse with this drunken tinker named Christopher Sly.
Yes, the induction sequence.
Right. And this induction sequence completely alters the lens through which we view everything that follows. But a lot of people don't even know it exists, do they?
They don't, and that's a huge problem. The framing device is absolutely essential. Our audience likely knows the core plot of Katherina and Petruchio, but this induction is, it's often just skipped in modern stage productions.
Which seems crazy once you know what's in it.
It's a massive disservice to the work. So, set the scene. We are outside an alehouse on a heath. Christopher Sly is just passed out drunk on the cold ground. And a wealthy lord who is returning from a hunt sees this unconscious beggar and decides to play a staggering, incredibly elaborate psychological trick.
Just for his own amusement.
Exactly. Just because he can. He instructs his servants to carry Sly to the fairest chamber in his own house, dress him up in sweet clothes, and command his entire household to act as if Sly is a mighty nobleman.
And they tell him he's been suffering from a lunatic delusion, right?
Right, for the past 7 years. They even dress up a young male page as a woman to pretend to be Sly's devoted, weeping wife. It's an immersive reality distortion.
Wow. So the Lord is fundamentally asking a behavioral question here. It's like if a person is treated a certain way by everyone around them, do they actually become that thing? He literally asks his hunters, would not the beggar then forget himself?
And the answer the play gives us is a terrifying yes.
It really is. Because when Sly wakes up, he initially resists it. He knows who he is. He says, I am Christopher Sly. Call not me honor nor lordship. He just wants his small ale and his beef.
He's clinging to his objective reality.
Right. But the environment is just relentless. They play beautiful music. They offer him falcons. They present this gorgeous wife. And within just a few minutes of dialogue, the sheer weight of the societal consensus crushes his individual reality.
It just bulldozes him.
He totally caves. He says, am I a lord? And have I such a lady? Or do I dream? Or have I dreamed till now?
Which is such a powerful line. And it introduces the central theme of our deep dive reality versus illusion, and just the sheer malleability of human identity. Sly accepts the illusion because it is more comfortable than fighting an entire ecosystem that's telling him otherwise.
He just puts on the disguise society handed to him.
Exactly. We have to keep this framing in mind as we transition into the main play, because the main play is literally presented as a theatrical performance put on for this tricked beggar.
Wait, so the whole Padua story is just a play for Christopher Sly?
Yes. The entire story of Padua, of Petruchio and Katherina, is nested within this primary question: who are we when the world demands we play a specific role.
That completely changes how you look at the rest of it. So let's transition to that play within the play. We are in Padua, a place that Lucentio describes as the nursery of arts.
Sounds very romantic.
It does. But any listener who knows this play understands that it quickly reveals itself to be a place of cutthroat commerce. Specifically, the commerce of marriage. This is not some romantic, idealized world.
Not at all. It's a 16th century meat market.
Exactly. Women are assets and dowries are the currency. And we meet this guy, Baptista Minola, who has created a massive bottleneck in this market. He declares that his highly sought-after, supposedly obedient younger daughter, Bianca, cannot be married until his eldest daughter finds a husband.
The cursed and shrewd Katherina.
Right. And you really need to explain the historical and human context of this decision because it's vital to understanding the mechanics of the play.
Yeah, we have to look at the 16th century here. A father's primary social and economic duty was the advantageous marriage of his daughters. So Baptista isn't just being a quirky, stubborn dad. He is actively manipulating the supply and demand of the local economy.
He's playing a market strategy.
Exactly. By withholding the high-demand asset, which is Bianca, he forces all these eager suitors to figure out what to do with the distressed asset, which is Katherina.
And how do the men in the society react? Because it's pretty awful.
It's terrible. They view Katherina not as a human being with emotional complexity, but entirely as a barrier to their prize. You have Gremio, Hortensio, and the newly arrived Lucentio, and they describe her in terms of livestock. They literally say she belongs in hell, comparing her to a fiend or demonic possession.
They just treat the whole situation like an obstacle course. And to get around Baptista's rules, the men immediately start scheming. And this is where I want to focus on the disguises, because it ties right back to Christopher Sly.
Oh, the disguises are everywhere in this section.
Right. So we know the plot. Lucentio disguises himself as a Latin tutor. Hortensio disguises himself as a music teacher. Tranio pretends to be Lucentio. They even eventually trick a random traveling pedant into pretending to be Lucentio's father.
It's just a cascade of lies.
Everyone in this society is putting on a fake identity. It's like a Renaissance reality TV dating show where literally everyone is catfishing the father to get to the daughter.
That's a great way to put it.
But here's my question, and I really want to push back on the traditional reading of Katherina here. We look at her, and sure, she is violent. She breaks a lute over a guy's head. She ties up her sister. She's deeply combative.
Very abrasive, yes.
But in a world full of literal liars, where men are plotting to buy her sister through fraudulent identities, isn't Katherina's shrewish anger actually the most honest, sane reaction to an environment that treats women like chess pieces?
I love that you brought that up, because that is the exact inversion we need to explore today. If we view her anger not as an inherent personality defect, but as a deliberate rejection of a corrupt system, her character makes complete sense.
She's just calling it like she sees it.
Right. Katherina is surrounded by artifice. And we actually see glimpses that her sister Bianca's sweetness is an entirely performative disguise, too.
Wait, really? Bianca isn't actually sweet?
Not at all. When the disguised tutors try to instruct Bianca away from her father's eyes, she drops the sweet act immediately and snaps at them, establishing her dominance. She says, basically, I'll learn what I want when I want. Bianca knows exactly how to play the patriarchal game to get what she wants.
Oh, wow. So Bianca's just playing the system from the inside.
Precisely. But Katherina refuses the disguise of the compliant maiden. Her violence and her sharp tongue are a massive, walking protest against a system that views her entirely as property to be traded.
So because she rejects the system's preferred illusions, the system labels her a monster.
Exactly. She won't play the game, so they call her a shrew.
But then enter Petruchio of Verona. And if Katherina is protesting the system, Petruchio is the guy who shows up to exploit it with terrifying, brutal honesty.
He is a force of nature, and not in a good way.
Right. He explicitly states his sole goal to his friend Hortensio. I come to wive it wealthily in Padua. That's it. He doesn't offer any flowery, poetic romance like Lucentio does for Bianca.
He's not writing any sonnets.
No, he doesn't care if a woman is as foul as a witch or as rough as the Adriatic seas. If she brings a massive dowry, he will marry her. He is the ultimate transactional man.
And that's what makes him so dangerous. Petruchio strips away all the fake, courtly romance that the other suitors use to mask their economic motives. He understands the raw mechanics of his world.
He just says the quiet part out loud.
He really does. When Baptista warns him about Katherina's temper, Petruchio doesn't flinch. He compares himself to a raging fire, stating that where two raging fires meet, they consume the thing that feeds their fury.
Meaning he thinks he can out-crazy her.
Exactly. He views her anger not as a deterrent, but as a challenge to his own indomitable will. He sees an equal, but only in the sense that he wants to dominate that equal.
Which brings us to the massive elephant in the room, the obstacles to growth in this text. We have to highlight the countercultural, deeply uncomfortable ideas here because modern listeners will, and absolutely should, naturally resist Petruchio's methods.
Without a doubt. It is incredibly hard to read today.
We are talking about a husband who engages in a deliberate campaign of psychological and physical dominance to break his wife. In modern terms, let's just call it what it is. It's systematic abuse.
Yes, it is.
So what does this all mean? How are we supposed to find wisdom in a text where a man literally gaslights and starves his wife under the guise of perfect love?
It is the most difficult hurdle of the source material, and we absolutely must not brush past it. We have to examine the specific tactics of deprivation he uses, because they are deliberate. Once they are married, he takes her to his country house. The journey itself is a designed catastrophe, falling in the mud, horses running away.
Just chaos from the start.
Right. And when they finally arrive, he delivers a soliloquy in Act 4, Scene 1 that is just bone-chilling in its calculation. He compares Katherina to a wild falcon.
A falcon, like a bird of prey.
Yes. He says, "My falcon now is sharp and passing empty. Until she stoops, she must not be full gorged."
Wow.
This refers to the actual 16th century practice of taming birds of prey by starving them and keeping them awake until they submit to the falconer's will.
So he is literally using animal training techniques on a human being, on his wife.
Yes. He starves her by claiming the roasted meat is burnt and bad for her choleric temper, so he throws it away. He says he's protecting her.
The ultimate gaslighting.
Exactly. And then he keeps her awake all night by tearing up the bed, claiming it isn't made perfectly for her comfort. He explicitly states, this is a way to kill a wife with kindness.
It's so disturbing. He creates an environment where her basic survival needs, food, sleep, are entirely dependent on his arbitrary approval. Again, I have to ask the critical question, why are we studying a psychological torture manual?
It's a fair question. To find the wisdom, we have to look at the mechanics of the play as a broader theatrical construct.
Right.
We must ask if the author is writing a genuine instructional manual for 16th century husbands, which some people believe, or if this is a grotesque magnification of the era's power dynamics.
Like turning up to 11 to show how absurd it is.
Yes. There is a strong line of literary analysis that suggests Petruchio's behavior is so extreme, so far beyond the pale of even Renaissance standards, that it actually functions as a dark satire of the very concept of male dominance.
I hear that, but I really have to push back hard on this satire theory. Is it actually satire, or is that just a convenient excuse modern critics use because they are uncomfortable with the idea that an esteemed author wrote a straightforward misogynistic comedy?
That is a very valid point.
I mean, how do we know the audience of the time didn't just view this as hilarious literal slapstick where the loud woman finally gets put in her place?
That is a completely fair challenge.
Yeah.
And honestly, it is highly probable that a large portion of the original audience consumed it precisely that way, as straightforward misogynistic entertainment.
Right, because that's what the culture rewarded.
Exactly. However, the textual evidence for the satirical, or at least highly critical reading, lies in how Petruchio's actions alienate literally everyone, not just Katherina.
What do you mean?
Well, look at the absurdity of the patriarch being presented. When he shows up for his high society wedding, he arrives late, wearing mismatched inside-out clothes and riding a horse inflicted with an absurd, comical list of diseases.
Wait, diseases? Like what?
Oh, the text lists them out. Glanders, lampas, spavins, staggers.
I don't even know what those are, but they sound gross.
They are. It's basically a walking corpse of a horse.
Yeah.
And then during the ceremony, he hits the priest and throws wine in the sexton's face.
Oh, wow. So he's just destroying the social decorum completely. The other men in the play, the ones who supposedly wanted Katherina tamed so they could maintain their orderly society, they must be horrified by him.
They are. They literally call him a madcap ruffian.
Okay, so it's not like the other guys are clapping and taking notes.
No, they think he's insane. Petruchio takes the implicit rules of their patriarchal society, the idea that men own women, that marriage is a strict economic acquisition, and he acts them out so literally, so violently, and so chaotically that it disrupts their entire social order.
He's holding up a funhouse mirror to the men of Padua.
Exactly. The text forces the audience to look at the logical extreme of their own social structures. If women are truly just property to be broken like falcons, then this monstrous behavior is what that process actually looks like. It strips away the polite veneer of society.
Okay, so if we accept that the text is at least partially exposing the absurdity of the system, Katherina is still the one caught in the crossfire. She's the one being starved and kept awake.
Yes, she bears the brunt of it.
Which leads us to the core wisdom of the text, the clash of wills and the ultimate game of compliance. Because this isn't just a story of a woman being beaten down, it's about a highly intelligent woman figuring out how to survive and eventually thrive in an impossible situation.
Now let us trace her intellectual journey here because it's brilliant. When they first meet, it is a battle of absolute equals. The verbal sparring is legendary.
Oh, they're so fast together.
Right. She calls him a movable, meaning a piece of furniture.
Yeah.
He counters. She threatens him with a wasp sting. They match each other's win perfectly, blow for blow.
But verbal dominance doesn't save her from the physical deprivation at his country house.
No, it doesn't. He holds all the physical cards. But the turning point of the entire narrative, the moment of profound, transformative insight, occurs in Act 4, Scene 5, on the public road back to Padua.
This is the famous sun and moon scene. They're on the road, and Petruchio looks up at the sky and says, "Good Lord, how bright and goodly shines the moon."
And it's the middle of the day.
Right. And Katherina, who is exhausted, starving, and just wants to get back to civilization, points out the objective reality. She says, "The moon, the sun, it is not moonlight now."
Which is perfectly reasonable.
But Petruchio immediately halts the journey. He says it shall be moon or star or whatever he wants it to be before they travel one more step. He completely refuses to move forward unless she agrees with the blatant distortion of objective reality.
And Hortensio, who is traveling with him, whispers to Katherina, "Say as he says, or we shall never go."
He's like, "Just give in, please. We're stuck out here."
Exactly. And this is where we see Katherina's aha moment. She realizes something vital about the nature of power and conflict in that instant. She says, "Forward I pray, since we have come so far, and be it moon or sun or what you please. And if you please to call it a rush candle, henceforth I vow it shall be so for me."
I want to dig into the mechanics of what just happened there because it is brilliant. She hasn't been brainwashed, right? She hasn't been broken into actually believing the sun is the moon.
Not at all.
She has simply cracked the code of his psychological game. What's fascinating here is that she realizes fighting a madman with logic is just a losing battle.
What's fascinating here is the absolute shift in her strategic thinking. Up until this point, Katherina's primary defense mechanism has been a relentless commitment to objective truth and forceful resistance.
Right.
If someone treats her like a commodity, she violently points out their hypocrisy. If the sun is shining, she will fight to the death to assert that it's the sun.
Because it is.
Right. But in doing so, she keeps herself trapped in the mud on the side of the road with a maniac. Petruchio is not asking for her intellectual agreement. He is demanding her verbal compliance. He is demanding she participate in his theatrical reality.
It makes me think of modern improvisational comedy.
Oh, that's an interesting connection.
Yeah, the absolute golden rule of improv is yes and. If you and I are on stage and I say, "Look at this giant purple elephant," and you respond, "There's no elephant, we're in a boring office," the scene instantly dies. You've blocked the premise.
You've halted the momentum completely.
Exactly. It becomes a frustrating circular argument where we're just fighting over the reality of the scene rather than moving the narrative forward. But if you say yes, and the elephant is wearing a tuxedo, suddenly we have momentum. We have a shared reality we can play in. Katherina finally learns to yes and Petruchio's absurd reality.
That analogy perfectly captures the dynamic. Once she abandons her rigid defense of objective reality and plays his game, she actually regains her agency. And we see her master this new technique almost instantly.
Oh, she's so good at it.
She is. Moments later, on that same road, an old man named Vincenzo walks toward them. Petruchio, just testing her new compliance, addresses this wrinkled old man as if he is a beautiful young woman. He asks Kate if she's ever seen a fresher gentlewoman.
And she leans into the improv so hard it's breathtaking. She goes right up to this old man and calls him a young budding virgin, fair and fresh and sweet. She commits to the bit with such theatrical intensity that Petruchio actually has to stop her and remind her that it's an old man.
She beats him at his own game.
She does, and then she effortlessly pivots again, blaming her mistake on eyes that have been so bedazzled with the sun. She even manages to slip a sly joke in there about their previous argument regarding the sun.
She is incredibly sharp.
She has gained the upper hand by mastering the absurd system she was trapped in.
She discovers that yielding is not necessarily the same as surrendering.
That is such an important distinction.
Yielding can be a highly tactical maneuver to remove the friction that is preventing forward momentum. By giving Petruchio the performative compliance he demands, she effectively neutralizes his aggression and secures her own passage back to Padua.
Which sets us up for the climax of the source text, a moment that requires us to exercise immense wisdom with discernment. We arrive at Act 5, the banquet, and the infamous final wager. The men Petruchio, Lucentio, and Hortensio are sitting around making a bet of 100 crowns on whose wife is the most obedient.
It is the ultimate display of the commodification of women.
They are literally treating their wives like racehorses, like who will come when called.
Exactly. And so Lucentio's new wife, the supposedly sweet and obedient Bianca,
the one everyone wanted.
right, she refuses to come when summoned, sending word that she's busy. Hortensio's new wife, a wealthy widow, also refuses, telling him to come to her if he wants to talk. The two women who played the patriarchal game perfectly to secure their marriages immediately drop their disguises the moment the rings are on their fingers, leading to instant marital discord.
But when Petruchio sends for Katherina, she not only comes immediately, but at his command, she drags the other recalcitrant women into the room, and then she delivers the longest speech in the entire play.
The massive monologue of submission.
Yes. She tells the other women that a husband is a lord, life, keeper, head, and sovereign. She compares a woman's duty to that of a subject to a prince. She calls women froward and unknowable worms, and literally offers to place her hand below her husband's foot as a token of duty.
It's a lot to take in. Here is where we must distinguish enduring wisdom from ancient bias. We cannot blindly endorse the literal text of this speech.
No, absolutely not.
The 16th century legal framework viewed women as property under the doctrine of coverture. So Petruchio's earlier claim that Katherina is my goods, my chattels, my horse, my ox, my ass, was not just offensive rhetoric, it was legally accurate in that era.
Which is horrifying.
It is. The patriarchal supremacy woven into Katherina's closing speech is a reflection of a deeply unequal historical reality that modern society has rightfully dismantled.
So how do we find wisdom in a woman publicly advocating for her own subjugation? How do we reconcile this? Because this speech is so thorny and controversial that it actually broke the brains of some of the greatest literary critics in history.
It really did.
Yeah, our source material notes a fascinating historical fact. William Hazlitt, the famous 19th century essayist who wrote extensive, definitive commentaries on all of Shakespeare's plays, left absolutely no commentary on The Taming of the Shrew. He just skipped it entirely. Why was he so silent?
Hazlitt's silence is incredibly revealing here. He was a quintessential romantic critic. The Romantics valued absolute sincerity, pure emotional truth, and, the sublime. The Taming of the Shrew is deeply cynical, entirely pragmatic, and obsessed with performative identity.
It's the opposite of romantic.
Exactly. It shattered Hazlitt's critical framework.
Yeah.
How do you analyze a play where the central relationship is built on a hostage negotiation that morphs into a bizarre role-playing partnership? For 19th century critics, the idea that love could be a manufactured, pragmatic performance was just deeply uncomfortable.
Because it exposes the artificiality of all social roles. If we look deeper with discernment, the incredible irony of the final scene is that while Katherina is preaching absolute submission, she is the one entirely commanding the room.
Yes. She has all the power in that moment.
She has the floor. She speaks longer and more eloquently than anyone else. The men who place the wager are sitting in stunned silence while she dictates the terms of reality.
Exactly. The entire society of Padua is built on deception. Lucentio's marriage is built on a lie. Hortensio's is built on a compromise he resents. But Katherina, through this massive theatrical performance of submission, is the only character who ends up securing a functioning, peaceful partnership.
Wait, really? By performing submission, she gets peace.
Yes, because she publicly elevates Petruchio, giving him the immense social capital he craves among his peers. And in return, he gives her his respect and autonomy. He says, "Why, there's a wench. Come on and kiss me, Kate." They are no longer captor and captive. They are co-conspirators. They have formed a private alliance against a ridiculous world.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. How do we pull this 16th century chaos into our 21st century realities? We aren't dealing with literal dowries and taming schools, thank goodness, but we are dealing with intense, rigid societal expectations and constant information overload telling us who we are supposed to be.
Constantly. We are bombarded with it.
Just like Christopher Sly in The Induction, we wake up every day to an environment handing us disguises at work, on social media, in our relationships.
We are constantly navigating performative conflict. The dynamic between Katherina and Petruchio challenges us to examine how much of our own conflict is purely performative.
What do you mean by performative conflict in a modern sense?
Think about the arguments we engage in online, or the circular fights we have in our households. How often are we fighting over the sun and the moon? How often are we prioritizing our need to prove we possess objective reality over our desire to actually solve the problem or maintain the relationship?
Man, it's the difference between being right and being effective. I see this in corporate environments all the time.
Right. It happens constantly.
Two departments will go to war over a minor procedural technicality, completely halting a project, just because neither director wants to concede a minor point of pride. They are stuck in the mud on the road to Padua.
Exactly. They won't just say it's the moon so they can keep moving.
The text challenges us to embrace the concept of mutual survival. Sometimes, yielding the need to be objectively right in a specific moment is the most strategic, highly intelligent move for long-term peace and progress.
And this connects beautifully to broader comparative insights found in other major wisdom traditions.
Like what?
Consider Taoist philosophy. The Tao Te Ching repeatedly emphasizes that true strength lies in flexibility and yielding. Water is the softest, most yielding substance in the world, yet it can wear away the hardest rock because it flows around obstacles rather than shattering against them.
That's a profound image.
It is. The rigidity of the other characters in the play, the pedant clinging to his false identity out of fear, or Bianca clinging to her fake sweetness until she just snaps, leads to jarring, destructive conflict. Katherina's ultimate fluidity, her ability to flow like water and say the sun is the moon if it serves her ultimate goal, is what brings her peace.
It also strongly mirrors Stoic philosophy, specifically the teachings of Epictetus regarding the dichotomy of control.
Oh, definitely.
The Stoics teach us to ruthlessly divide the world into things we can control and things we cannot. Katherina cannot control the fact that she was born a woman in a deeply patriarchal 16th century Italian society. She cannot control her father's transactional nature. She cannot control that Petruchio is acting like an absolute lunatic.
All of that is totally outside her sphere of influence.
Right, but she can completely control her internal assent and her outward reaction. By relinquishing her futile fight against the things she cannot control, she gains absolute mastery over the things she can. The paradox of control is that by yielding, she actually wins.
That is the profound philosophical takeaway here. So, moving to the practical how-to, how do we apply the messy, deeply flawed dynamic of Kate and Petruchio to our daily lives? I suggest a specific reflection for you, the listener, regarding your own conflicts.
Let's hear it.
The next time you find yourself in a frustrating, circular argument with a partner, a colleague, or a family member, I want you to pause and ask yourself a very specific question. Am I fighting over the sun and the moon?
I love that, using it as a literal diagnostic tool in the moment.
Exactly. Ask yourself, are you locked in a battle over a minor technicality? Are you arguing just to prove your superior grip on objective reality while the actual foundation of the relationship deteriorates?
Because it's so easy to get caught up in being right.
It is. So practice the tactical yield. Practice giving verbal compliance on a superficial point. Say, you know what, let's look at it your way. Or, I see how you could view it as the moon. Watch what happens.
See if it changes the energy.
Yes. See if that small act of conversational compliance shifts the underlying power dynamic from combat to collaboration. Often when you stop resisting the premise, the other person feels validated and immediately drops their armor too.
It's the yes and technique for de-escalation in real time. And I will add a second practical exercise based on the framing device of the induction. Look at your own life and ask yourself, where in my life am I playing Christopher Sly?
That is a vital line of questioning for modern identity.
What false role, what heavy disguise are you currently wearing at work or in a relationship simply because the environment aggressively handed it to you? Are you pretending to be the sweet, compliant Bianca in your office because you want to avoid conflict even when you desperately need to set boundaries?
Or conversely, are you playing the angry, difficult Katherina in your family dynamic because they expect you to be the contrarian, so you just lean into the role to protect yourself?
Such a good point. Question the disguise. Recognize that just like the characters in the play, you have the agency to rewrite the script. If the role you are playing is preventing actual, genuine connection and causing you suffering, it is time to take off the borrowed clothes.
That is the enduring wisdom hidden beneath the deeply uncomfortable surface of this ancient text. It forces us to confront the artificiality of our social contracts. But as we close this deep dive, I want to leave the listener with one final provocative thought to mull over on their own. It's a question the text purposefully leaves unanswered.
What's the final thought?
The play concludes with Petruchio and Katherina leaving the banquet victorious. They have won the massive wager, they have stunned the hypocritical crowd of Padua, and they exit the stage to go to bed. But think about the carriage ride home.
Away from the crowd.
Right. When the audience of Padua is finally gone, when the game of the wager is over, and it is just the two of them in the quiet of their own home, what does their genuine, unobserved relationship actually look like the next morning?
When the performative conflict stops, who are they in the dark?
Exactly. Have they used this chaotic theatrical role play to build a true private partnership based on mutual respect and shared inside jokes against the ridiculous world? Or by playing these extreme roles of the dominant lord and the submissive subjects so intensely and so perfectly, are they doomed to be trapped in those disguises forever, unable to ever just be vulnerable, equal humans?
Man, that is heavy.
It is the ultimate question of reality versus illusion, and it challenges us to examine the masks we wear in our own most intimate relationships.
That's the heart of this section. This is wisdom for the present, where understanding leads to clarity, and clarity shapes how we see and live. We'll see you in the next episode.